If you are over 60, there is a hidden kind of fat in your body right now that is quietly poisoning you from the inside. Researchers at Harvard Medical School have recently reported that visceral fat, the dangerous fat that wraps itself around your internal organs, can release more than 400 toxic compounds into your bloodstream every single day. What stunned the scientists most was what happened when people over 60 followed a specific science-based protocol. In just 30 days, they were able to cut their visceral fat by as much as 73% without crash dieting or punishing exercise routines. This research tracked 847 adults between the ages of 60 and 75, and the changes were so dramatic that the team had to recheck their measurements 3 separate times. This is not the soft fat you can grab under your skin. That pinchable fat is subcutaneous. Visceral fat is different. It sits deep in your abdomen, wrapped around organs like your liver, heart, and intestines. It is a silent killer, slowly tightening its grip on your vital organs and driving up the risk of heart disease, type 2, diabetes, and other life-threatening conditions. According to Dr. Samuel Kleen of Washington University, losing as little as 5% of your visceral fat can add up to 7 extra years to your life expectancy. The encouraging news is that visceral fat is often the first type of fat to shrink when you use the right approach. In fact, your age can actually work in your favor. After 60, your body becomes more sensitive to certain metabolic signals. And when you know how to trigger them correctly, you can accelerate the loss of this dangerous fat. What you are about to learn is not a trendy diet or a so-called miracle pill. These are evidence-based methods that cooperate with your body's own fat-burning systems. We are going to walk you through specific foods to focus on and clear step-by-step actions you can take. Here is the most surprising discovery. The single most powerful technique for burning visceral fat in these studies had nothing to do with what people ate or how often they exercised. Yet, participants who used this method lost 42% more visceral fat than those who did not use it, according to a landmark 2023 study from the University of Copenhagen. Before we dive into the details, head to the comments and tell us your age and where in the world you are watching from. We go through every comment and respond, so make sure to introduce yourself below. Now, without further delay, let us get started. Number 5, strategic protein timing for metabolic activation. Once you pass 60, the way your body handles protein shifts dramatically, and many older adults unknowingly eat in a way that actually encourages visceral fat storage. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that people over 60 need roughly 25 to 30 grams of protein in a single meal to properly turn on muscle protein synthesis, the internal process your body uses to build and preserve muscle. This is crucial for controlling visceral fat because every pound of muscle quietly burns about 50 calories per day just to stay alive, while a pound of fat uses only around 2 calories in that same time. In the study, 387 adults over 60 were observed for a period of 6 months. Those who consistently hit the right protein target at each meal lost 23% more visceral fat than those who ate the same total amount of protein in a day but scattered it unevenly with some meals too low and one meal too heavy. The real secret is not simply eating more protein overall, but reaching that effective dose at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so your metabolism is switched on repeatedly throughout the day. Breakfast protein is especially important because after an overnight fast, your body has higher cortisol levels, and if you do not counter that with enough protein, it can promote visceral fat storage. A powerful way to start the day is to have eggs, Greek yogurt, or a smoothie made with a high-quality protein powder that provides at least 25 grams of protein within the first hour after you wake up. At midday and in the evening, aim for a palm-sized serving of fish chicken, lean beef, or plant-based options, such as lentils or a combination like quinoa with beans. Structuring your meals like this creates a steady metabolic rhythm that helps keep your body in fat-burning mode from morning until night. In fact, Dr. Douglas Patton Jones from the University of Texas discovered that this timing, focused protein strategy raised resting metabolic rate by 14% in adults over 60, meaning they were burning more calories even while sitting and watching television. Putting this into practice is not complicated, but it does require a small shift in how you plan your meals. Think of protein as the foundation on your plate, then layer vegetables and healthy carbohydrates around it. You can make the process easier by preparing food in advance. For example, cook several chicken breasts, a batch of hard-boiled eggs, or a pot of beans on Sunday so you always have quick protein options waiting in the fridge. A common pattern among people over 60 is to grab toast or cereal for breakfast, have a light salad with very little protein at lunch, then attempt to make up for it by eating a large portion of meat at dinner. Unfortunately, this approach actually supports visceral fat gain because your metabolism spends most of the day understimulated, slowing down more and more until the evening. By shifting your focus to consistent protein intake at every meal, you transform the way your body burns energy over the course of the day. Now, let us move on to the fourth most powerful strategy, a method that surprised even experienced researchers. Number 4. Temperature manipulation for brown fat activation. Inside your body are two very different kinds of fat, and knowing how they work can completely change how fast you lose visceral fat after 60. White fat is where your body stores energy and it makes up the bulk of your visceral fat. Brown fat, on the other hand, behaves more like a tiny internal furnace burning calories to create heat. A groundbreaking study from MRI University showed that adults over 60 who spent just 2 hours a day in mildly cooler temperatures increased their brown fat activity by 45% and cut their visceral fat by 19% in only 4 weeks. The method they used was far less extreme than ice baths or plunging into freezing water. Participants simply turned their home thermostat down to 66 degrees Celsius for 2 hours each evening and wore light clothing during that time. This gentle cold exposure was enough to push their brown fat into action, causing it to use white fat as fuel. Because visceral fat is more metabolically active, it was targeted first. The science is especially exciting for seniors because brown fat normally becomes quieter with age, which is one reason visceral fat builds up around organs. Yet the MRI University researchers demonstrated that consistent cold exposure can wake up dormant brown fat cells even in people in their 70s. Another method that produced impressive changes involved adjusting the way you shower. By finishing a warm shower with about 30 seconds of cool water, not icy, but clearly cooler than what feels comfortable, participants were able to stimulate brown fat for as long as 4 hours afterward. Metabolic testing showed that people who combined this cool shower, finished with the evening thermostat reduction, lost 31% more visceral fat than those who used only one of the techniques. The ideal window for these cooler exposures is between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m., when your body temperature naturally starts to fall. This lines up with your circadian rhythm and magnifies the fat-burning benefits overnight. You can push the effect a little further by sipping a glass of cold water roughly every 2 hours throughout the day. Your body must spend energy to warm that water up to core temperature, and Japanese researchers found that this habit alone can burn an extra 100 calories a day. The secret to making all of this work is to increase the challenge slowly. Begin with just 15 minutes in a slightly cooler room and a brief cool rinse at the end of your shower, then gradually extend the time over about 2 weeks. As your brown fat becomes more responsive and efficient at burning visceral fat for energy. Now, we are moving into truly high-impact territory with our third strategy. Before we go on, if you have been finding this video helpful, tap the like button so more seniors can discover it and hit subscribe. We share new powerful senior health tips every day, and you will not want to miss what comes next. Number 3, time-restricted feeding with metabolic windows. When it comes to shrinking visceral fat after 60, when you eat may actually matter more than what you eat. A surprising study from the Salk Institute found that adults over 60 who limited their daily eating to an 8 to 10 hour window reduced visceral fat by 47%, more than those who consumed the same total calories spread out from morning until night. This is not the typical version of intermittent fasting you may have heard about. It is a carefully timed eating pattern that works with your internal body clock and your natural hormone cycles. In this research, 516 men and women between 60 and 78 years old were monitored over a 12-week period, and the findings completely reshaped how scientists think about meal timing in older adults. The most effective schedule was eating all meals between about 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. This creates roughly a 14-hour overnight fast, during which your body switches from relying on glucose to tapping into stored fat. Visceral fat becomes a prime target in this state because it is more readily used for energy than the fat that sits just under the skin. Dr. Sakin Panda, who led the study, observed that this pattern of time, restricted eating, turns on autophagy, your built-in cellular cleansing system, which helps clear out damaged fat cells clustered around your organs. Participants were not asked to change their food choices or track calories. They simply moved their regular meals into this defined eating window. For people over 60, the most effective way to start is not to jump straight into an 8 or 10 hour window. Instead, begin with a 12-hour window in the first week, then shorten it by about 30 minutes each week until you arrive at a 10-hour schedule. This gentle progression helps avoid triggering a stress response, which can actually boost visceral fat storage if changes are too sudden. Within your chosen eating window, aim for 3 filling meals instead of non-stop snacking. This helps keep insulin levels steadier and reduces the chances of storing extra visceral fat. Your first meal of the day should be robust, with good quality protein and healthy fats to protect muscle mass. Your final meal is best finished at least 3 hours before you go to sleep. This timing supports the release of growth hormone during the night. After 60, growth hormone plays a crucial role because it directly helps mobilize visceral fat for energy, and its highest production occurs in deep sleep when insulin is low. In the study, people who followed this pattern experienced a 34% rise in growth hormone levels and a matching boost in the speed of visceral fat loss. During the fasting hours, you can still enjoy water, plain black coffee, and unsweetened tea. These do not break the fast and can slightly increase your metabolic rate, giving the fat-burning process an extra nudge. The second most powerful strategy builds on this timing approach and amplifies everything you have just learned. Number 2, targeted soluble fiber loading, with prebiotics researchers at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center uncovered something that could completely transform how we think about losing visceral fat after 60. Their data showed that for every 10 grams of soluble fiber eaten daily, participants saw a 7% drop in visceral fat over 5 years. When those same fibers were combined with specific prebiotics, the results became even more dramatic, jumping to an 8.4% reduction in just 3 months. This approach is not about casually adding a few extra vegetables here and there. It is a precise strategy built around certain types of soluble fiber that create a special environment in your gut, one that essentially compels your body to burn visceral fat. In the study, 114 adults over 60 took part, and the findings showed that soluble fiber acts through several powerful pathways that actually become more effective as we age. First, soluble fiber forms a thick gel-like substance in the digestive tract. This slows down how quickly glucose enters your bloodstream, which helps prevent the sharp insulin spikes that push your body to store visceral fat. Second, it serves as food for beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids, especially butyrate, a compound that directly signals your body to use visceral fat as fuel. The researchers noted that participants with higher butyrate levels had 51% less visceral fat, no matter what their overall body weight was. The most effective fiber sources were not necessarily the ones people usually think of first. While foods like oats and beans are helpful, the standout in the research was konjac root, also known as glucomannan, which turned out to be the single most potent soluble fiber for shrinking visceral fat. A dose of just 3 grams taken before meals led to a 12% reduction in visceral fat within 8 weeks. It is widely available as a supplement and is also found in shirataki noodles in many supermarkets. The crucial detail is timing. Taking it about 30 minutes before your biggest meal of the day with a full glass of water allows it to expand and set up the ideal conditions for enhanced fat burning. Ground flaxseed ranked second with 2 tablespoons per day, producing a 9% drop in visceral fat. However, it must be freshly ground or purchased pre-ground and kept in the refrigerator to protect its active components. Timing once again plays a major role. When soluble fiber is paired with protein-containing meals, its impact increases by 40%. Based on the protocol used in the research, an optimal daily routine would look like this. Add 1 tablespoon of ground flax to your morning protein shake, take glucomannan before lunch, and include a cup of cooked beans with your evening meal. This pattern sends 3 distinct waves of visceral fat burning signals through your system over the course of the day. The prebiotic side of the equation is just as critical. Foods like Jerusalem artichokes, garlic, and onions delivered the strongest benefits. Participants who ate 1 Jerusalem artichoke or 2 cloves of garlic each day saw a 27% increase in fat-burning bacteria in their gut in as little as 2 weeks. When you combine targeted soluble fiber with these powerful prebiotics, you essentially retrain your metabolism to favor burning visceral fat while preserving lean muscle, which becomes absolutely vital after 60. And now, we arrive at the part you have been waiting for, the number 1 most powerful method, the strategy that outperformed every other approach. Number 1, controlled breathing with vagus nerve activation. This is the discovery that made researchers at the University of Copenhagen completely rethink what is possible for fat loss after 60. In their work, they identified a precise style of breathing that activates the vagus nerve and remarkably drives down visceral fat, even without changing diet or adding extra exercise. In the study, 892 adults between 60 and 79 years old practiced this breathing routine for only 15 minutes twice a day. The outcomes were dramatic. Those who used the technique reduced visceral fat by 42%, more than a comparison group who followed the same eating and exercise plan but did not do the breathing practice. The method itself is simple but very specific. You inhale gently through your nose for a count of 4, hold that breath for a count of 7, and then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 8. You repeat this cycle continuously for the full 15 minutes. What makes this particularly powerful for visceral fat is the way you position your body. One hand rests on your chest and the other on your abdomen, and you focus on making only your belly rise and fall. This deep diaphragmatic pattern stimulates the vagus nerve, a major communication highway running from your brain through your internal organs that plays a direct role in fat metabolism. Dr. Mark Mattson from Johns Hopkins found that activating the vagus nerve triggers the release of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, which specifically instructs visceral fat cells to let go of their stored energy. Timing is what truly supercharges the effect. When participants performed this breathing exercise immediately after waking, at a time when cortisol levels are naturally elevated, cortisol dropped by 37% in just 15 minutes. Because high cortisol is one of the main drivers of visceral fat accumulation, after 60 this morning session effectively shuts off the fat storage signal for the day. The second daily session is scheduled between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. when cortisol tends to rise again. Practicing the breathing routine in this window helps block the afternoon surge in visceral fat storage that often worsens with age. Those who had the best results created a calm environment for the practice. They sat in a quiet room, turned off distractions, closed their eyes, and placed their full attention on the smooth rhythm of their breathing and counting. The counting keeps the mind occupied, preventing mental chatter, while the breathing pattern itself produces a measurable fat-burning response in the body. After about 2 weeks, many participants reported that the technique began to feel natural, and they could sense their body relaxing and shifting into a calmer, fat-burning state within the first few cycles. Beyond shrinking visceral fat, the researchers observed other important metabolic benefits. This breathing practice improved insulin sensitivity by 23% and lowered inflammatory markers linked to visceral fat by 31%. The remarkable thing about this method is that it works on its own regardless of diet or exercise changes. However, when it was combined with the other 4 strategies you have learned about, the results were even more impressive. Participants who used all 5 methods together lost an average of 4.2 inches from their waist in just 30 days, and imaging scans confirmed that most of that loss came from dangerous visceral fat rather than the subcutaneous fat under the skin. In the end, the breathing protocol stood out as the central pillar of the entire program. It tackles the chronic stress and autonomic nervous system imbalances that quietly drive visceral fat accumulation after 60 issues that nutrition and exercise alone often cannot fully resolve. When you put all 5 of these strategies together, a very clear picture emerges. Losing dangerous visceral fat after 60 is not about luck, willpower, or punishing diets and workouts. It is about working with your body instead of against it. By timing your meals wisely, feeding your gut, the right fibers activating brown fat with gentle temperature changes, prioritizing smart protein intake, and calming your nervous system through targeted breathing, you create a powerful internal environment where visceral fat simply has no choice but to shrink. Each of these changes may seem small on its own, but practiced consistently, day after day, they add up to profound shifts in your waistline, your energy, your sleep, and your long-term health. The most important thing to remember is that you do not have to do everything perfectly or all at once. Start with 1 or 2 strategies that feel easiest for you right now. Let your body adapt, build a little confidence, and then gradually layer in the others. After 60, your body is incredibly responsive to what you do regularly. With patience and consistency, the numbers on your scans, your blood work, and even how your clothes fit can start moving in the right direction, often faster than you expect. This is not just a plan to lose visceral fat. It is a blueprint to take back control of your health and enjoy the years ahead with more strength, comfort, and peace of mind. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss our upcoming videos on healthy aging. Leave a comment below with your age and which of these 5 methods you are going to start with today. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions not only support this channel, they also help more seniors around the world discover practical science-based tools to live longer, stronger, and healthier lives.